Period of disunion. The period of disunion was from 220 to 589. It was when the Han dynasty fell and China was split into three different kingdoms. Of the three kingdoms, the northern state was strongest, and war happened often against the other kingdoms. Nomads would settle in northern China, and some of the Chinese would follow their culture. Chinese culture mixed with the nomads created new music and arts. Buddhism. Buddhism was spread very quickly throughout China. This religion was one of the world's major religions. It came during the Han Dynasty, but there were only a few Buddhists. Buddhism became more popular in China during the period of disunion. Buddhist teachings gave them comfort. When the period of disunion ended, Buddhism started to make an influence to life in China. During the Sui and Tang dynasties, the religion was being introduced to different areas, like Japan. Buddhism influenced China so much. The period from 400 to 845 was called the Age of Buddhism. Empress Wu. Empress Wu was born in 620 BC and died in 700 BC. She was the only female who ruled over China. Her husband, the emperor, was sick. Wu didn't let any of her sons become emperor after the emperor died. She was intelligent and talented, but she ruled with an iron fist. Not everybody enjoyed her being an empress, but she was well respected. In ancient China, they invented many inventions such as the compass. The compass was used mostly in fortune telling. It was a lodestone ladle on a bronze plate. The handle always pointed south. Zhang He was the first person to use this for navigational purposes on his sea voyage. The compass helped sailors and traders in travel. Silk is naturally produced by silkworms. The cocoon, which they spin during their life cycle, is collected for silk. China learned how to convert these cocoons into a soft cloth. The cloth was eventually made into clothing. Everyone in China was able to wear silk clothing except the merchants and slaves. Silk was an important item in ancient China's economy. It was so valuable and expensive that it was used as money during some dynasties. The creation of silk allowed China to connect to the outside world through trade, which led to the beginning of the Silk Road. Trade is what made China rich. Traders would use the rivers to ship goods. The Grand Canal was a series of waterways that connected the cities. It carried lots of goods and crops to far cities inside China. China also traded with other people in Rome, Europe, and India using a route called the Silk Road. China traded on the seas too, but it wasn't really important until Song Dynasty. China is one of the most mixed art-making countries. The terracotta soldiers are one of China's great artwork. They were life-size statues that were found in Qin Shi Huang's tomb. The Tang Dynasty made ceramics that were mostly done by hand. Porcelain pottery was very delicate and had a very difficult process. The Chinese made paintings and calligraphy, which were one of the oldest artistic traditions. Paintings were mostly done on paper or silk, and then are placed on a scroll when finished. In the Song Dynasty, the Chinese improved the system on which people went to work for the government. People could join by passing the civil service examinations. These tests were so difficult that the students might need to study for more than 20 years to pass. Only few would pass and are placed in a position in the government. If you were to pass the test, you would live life as a scholar official, meaning you are an educated member of the government. Confucius. Confucius was a teacher and a philosopher who was born in 551 BC and died in 480 BC. His father divorced his first wife and married a young girl who gave birth to Confucius. Confucius was 15 years of age when he became interested in learning, while only the nobles and royal people were able to learn. It was hard for him to find a way to learn, but he went to work for a nobleman and was able to learn and travel to the imperial capital. Confucius learned and studied and soon was full of knowledge. People started to hear about his knowledge and wanted to send their children to him to learn. Confucius was the first private teacher in China. It's because of him Confucianism was created. Confucianism was not an actual religion. It's the way to behave that was based on the teachings of Confucius. It has many rules to behave properly. Confucius said that people should manage their lives based on two principles. The principles were Ren and Li. Ren meaning concern for others, and Li meaning appropriate behavior. Confucianism was spread by Confucius' followers after he died. But during the period of the disunion, Buddhism started to become more popular in China, which caused the Confucianism to lose some of its influence. The Yuan and Ming. Before the Yuan and Ming dynasty started, the Mongol conquest was first. Before, the tribes lived as separate tribes in the vast plains north of China, until a man named Temujin became leader and united all the tribes. When he became leader, they retitled him to Genghis Khan, which means universal ruler. Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan was a powerful leader. He organized the Mongols into a strong and powerful army. He led his army into bloody expeditions of conquest and ruled a large part of Asia. By his death in 1227, all of northern China was in Mongol control. When he died, his sons and grandsons continued the rule over all land all over Asia to Eastern Europe. One of the grandsons who continued the rule was Kublai Khan. Kublai Khan. In 1266, he became a ruler of the Mongol Empire. He also completed the conquest of China. He became emperor in 1279 and the founder of the Yuan dynasty. Yuan dynasty. When the Yuan dynasty ruled, they ruled with a different ethnic group than the Chinese. The Chinese were ruled by foreigners. The Chinese saw them as rude and uncivilized. During that time, some Mongols adapted some aspects of the Chinese, such as Confucianism. The Mongols also prohibited Confucian scholars from gaining too much power in the government. The Mongols placed heavy taxes on the Chinese, and the tax money that was collected went to pay vast public work projects. Soldiers were sent throughout China to keep peace and a close watch on the Chinese. The soldiers kept overland trade routes safe for merchants. There was sea trade between China, India, and Southeast Asia. The Mongol emperors welcomed foreign traders into Chinese ports. Marco Polo. One of these foreign traders was Marco Polo. In 1271 to 1295, he traveled in and around China. When he returned to Europe, he wrote about his travels in China. It fascinated many Europeans. Zhu Huanzhang. When he took charge in a rebel army, he led his army in final victory over Mongols, and Chinese ruled over China again. When the Chinese ruled again, he became the Emperor of China and founded the Ming Dynasty. Ming Dynasty. The Ming Dynasty ruled in 1368 to 1644, which is nearly 300 years. The time of the Ming was known to be the most stable and prosperous time in Chinese history. The Chinese improved in ships and sailing. They were also known for their great building projects. Many of these projects were built to impress the Chinese and their enemies to the north. For example, in Beijing, Ming emperors built the Forbidden City. This palace complex included hundreds of imperial residences, temples, and other government buildings. The name Forbidden City came from the fact that the common people were not allowed to enter. The Ming rulers also had a restoration on the famous Great Wall of China. Many soldiers and peasants worked hard to rebuild the collapsed portions of walls, connect existing walls, and build new ones. Protected by the wall and the soldiers who stood guard with it, the Chinese felt safe from invasions by the northern tribes. During the Ming Dynasty, the Chinese society began to change over time. This change was due to the efforts of the Ming emperors on eliminating all foreign influences on Chinese society. Due to this, it made a dramatic change in China's government and relations with other countries soon after China entered isolation, a policy of avoiding contact with other countries.